Hi, Mia.
Hi, Angel.
So we are back for our third conversation about Beyond Two Souls, and this time we've played through another bunch of episodes, ending at the end of the dinner.
Yes.
What are your just overall? What are your thoughts?
I'm sad. One of the thoughts that I'm having is I'm sad that I keep expecting the mechanics to get better, and they're not. And I feel like I have to resign myself to being crabby about the mechanics all the way throughout the game. Um, and other than that, the story continues to unfold in a kind of way that I am intrigued by, while at the same time have a bit of a raised eyebrow about. Those are my thoughts. How about yours?
Regarding the controls, there was exactly one QuickTime event that did a heavy rain style, press the
Yes.
stick to the side and then and I don't
Someone.
remember which one it was right now,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like I called it out as playing like, wait, has this happened anywhere else? Is this a holdover from some earlier version that they decided to excise all those like why why is there one QuickTime event that does a heavy rain style input and every other one is just push in the direction?
It does seem really arbitrary. I remember a couple of other spots in earlier chapters where I had to do that push to a side and then arc up and over.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah, I purged that from memory.
yeah, or maybe you hadn't hit those spots in the game.
I
But yeah.
also took note of something that we had talked about last time, which is that we do get a scene here. It's one of the shorter ones, and the one where, spoiler alert, I really messed up on a response that I wanted to give. But we do get a scene which happens very clearly after Like Other Girls, where Jodie
Yes.
went off to the bar,
Oh,
where she's there in the room with Cole, and there's just no acknowledgement of what she had done to him. And from the perspective of the storytelling, like maybe it's been several months or years and they worked it out, but boy, did we need to see them work that out.
yep. Yes. All I can do is say yes. I was waiting for that. We got what we got, and I was not happy. I
If
mean,
this would have
yeah.
happened in real life, you'd look at it and say Cole needs a better division between his personal life and his work life,
Right.
because his work life literally robbed him of control of his mind and body, and he
Right.
seems okay with it. But this isn't real life. This is writers sat down and authored a scene where that happens, and then authored scenes that occur chronologically later for him where he just doesn't talk about it, and that comes across as really, really lousy writing unless we as the audience are allowed to see him be upset about that, be
Right.
angry about it, threaten to quit. How much money did they throw at him as like a special researcher to keep him on staff? Like without any of that information, it seems like he just shrugged his shoulders and went back to work.
Yep.
And that's awful.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like you and I would want to continue to talk about how awful it is, just to be able to express how awful it is. And I don't know that we can.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's
yeah.
exactly as you said. Another thing that I was okay, so speaking of awful, that segues nicely into Ryan. Not a fan.
Also, why did I think his name was Mark or Matt or whatever the fuck I said? Like
Oh,
in
I
the.
thought it was Bryce. So
Okay. Regardless, what a piece of shit that guy is.
I dislike him so much,
Oh,
and the dinner, which we'll probably get to shortly, was an interesting experience of having things Jody wanted, things Aiden wanted, and things I
yes.
wanted, which didn't
Yes.
necessarily align along any of the three of them. But so, like, just super quickly, that scene that we were talking about that did feature Cole. It was an boy, was it an interesting decision. We've talked on a few occasions about the decision by the developer to tell this story non-chronologically.
Right.
So they are allowed, just based on what they decided to do, to shuffle these scenes into any sequence they wanted. And I am very curious in your thoughts about having a scene where Ryan comes in, rips Jodie away from the life that she's known since she was a very young child, she's sobbing the entire
Oh
scene, and then
God.
to go directly into a subsequent sequence where he's coming over for a date. I just any thoughts you have at all on that decision?
Well, I think I could come at it from a couple of different directions. One is just lack of awareness that, the writers are not taking into account who she is as a person by layering those scenes back to back, because all you need to do is say, oh, time has passed, and we showed her earlier making googly eyes at him. So that's where we are now in the story, without taking into account, like, not having any space between those two scenes made me at least think, how weak is she? She's I just kept viewing it through the perspective of, this is a woman, a young lady who is damaged by the fact that she found out her parents weren't her real parents, and then her adopted parents got ripped away from her. And so she is willing to go along with any male relationship just to, and I don't know, I got really deep into my thoughts of what it meant about her psyche. And then the other side of that, I don't even know what the other side is. I feel so strongly about the first side.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Just real quick. The other side was, maybe they wanted to make us uncomfortable. Maybe they wanted to put us in the position where we had the option to get back at this piece of shit by fucking up the date. And we had to have that struggle within ourselves. Do we do what Jody wants, or do we do what Aiden wants? Aiden/us want.
Right, and it was the fact that they layered those two scenes on right after another. Like, if this section of Jody's life had been told chronologically, where you meet Ryan, he comes, he like yanks her out of that life. She's crying the whole time. It took me so long to do that scene.
Oh my God, Angel.
Yeah, I didn't immediately pick up on the fact that for some dumbass reason, Jody walked into the room, picked up a duffel, and I was just like, oh, there's her stuff.
Yes,
it's
I
like,
know, me too.
Idiot. Like, she didn't know she was going. Why would she have pre-packed the duffel? So then, I went around trashing everything,
yes!
And then it occurred to me that I have to pack.
Oh my God. Angel, we had literally identical experiences. Please keep talking. Yes, I love you. Keep talking.
So yeah, Jody's got to step over all the broken glass and just pack up her clothes, and she's crying the whole time.
Ugh.
If that had then gone to the scenes that we saw her moving into the CIA camp and doing the training and getting better at the training and looking to Ryan for approval, and then going on that mission where they went to the dinner and they were spying on the stuff. If there'd been more space, then it would have felt like, okay, over the years they've gotten to know each other better.
Right.
But they very intentionally collapse these two moments, their first meeting and now what appears to be their most recent meeting according to the timeline, where it just, I cannot envision that the developer wanted us to feel good about Ryan. It feels like it was very deliberately engineered to make the player dislike Ryan, despite the fact that the protagonist is so into it. And
yeah,
if this was, it's the sort of decision that would make me if we were playing this in a complete vacuum with it was just for a completely unknown creative team, one thing that I might be thinking is how interesting it is to have the player, to make the player so acutely aware that Jody simply isn't socialized in the way that another young woman in her position might be.
Yeah.
She's lived her entire life under a microscope. She's been Jody cammed or Jenny cammed her entire life. And as far as we know, she's never had a normal friendship. She's never had a normal romantic relationship. The one time that we see her two times we try to see her interact with people her own age, both go terribly for
Right.
her. And here she is now as a young adult, and there's a guy who is showing interest in her, and she very much wants to have that human connection, so she's going to go with it. And we as a player are looking at it and saying like, oh my god, are you kidding? Like, he's the worst. And the developer makes sure that you know it. The writer makes sure
Yeah.
that you have that in mind. But then, I look at some of the other things that Quantic Dream has done with Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy and realize that the writers there have an interesting view of romantic relationships.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I wouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt. It was just super interesting to me that they put those scenes back to back.
And I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because I've disliked Ryan from the very first scene we see him in, where where they're on their mission, and he's being so cold to her, and I've disliked him ever since. So it didn't occur to me to think about how dislikable he was in one scene and have that butted up against another scene where she wants to be with him. Because I've been waiting for that. Like, of course he's going to be the love interest, but I appreciate being pulled out of it enough to recognize the intentional placement of those two scenes back to back.
Yeah, you called it really early, and also if anybody listening to this isn't familiar with some of Quantic Dream's other works, Mia has full playthroughs of Indigo Prophecy and Heavy Rain up on her channel, and I think on your YouTube channel as well, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so you could revisit that, and so I've gotten a chance through her channel to rewatch some of these, and yeah, the writers, and who knows how much crossover there is between those separate projects, except that David Cage was probably lead writer on all of them.
Yeah.
And in all three of them, you have a very interesting perspective, as I'll say,
Yep.
on romantic relationships and American bathrooms.
I know.
And I will say that because I've called it out. I don't know that you and I have talked about it.
No.
Beyond Two Souls officially has the most normal bathrooms
Yes!
in any David Cage game by like a huge margin. They have toilet and toilet paper and access to a sink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been keeping a specific eye out for the bathrooms. Yeah, go.
Yeah, as have I. And even like in Jodie's childhood home, it's like, wow, this looks like a place that you could actually get your business done and not feel horrible afterwards. But yeah, like when they went to the party, when Ryan and Jodie went to the party to do the spy stuff, I just saw Sydney Bristow and Vaughn from Alias. Like, I just saw two co-workers that were there to get a job done. And the fact that she was uncomfortable, he was like, you keyed in on it way earlier than I did, and I wasn't necessarily seeing them as a love interest all the way up until, and like the nature of their relationship is so inappropriate.
Right.
He is her direct superior, as far as we know. He's many years older than she is. As a CIA operative, you would expect him to have thorough information on her psych profile and evaluation, so he knows like the way that she's been brought up. And as I say these things, please do not, I don't want anybody listening to misunderstand that Jodie is incapable of having a regular healthy adult relationship.
Right.
I'm saying that having one with your boss who is older, who has a lot of inside knowledge as to your psychological profile, these are not the keystones of a healthy relationship. And the fact that he's pursuing it at all speaks very poorly of him.
Right. So can we talk? I mean, yes. And similarly, when I was speaking about what her, essentially her psychological damage may be, having had these very key and important, by the way, which is not at all redundant, people ripped out of her life, as time goes on, me saying, I use the word weak, but but I am speaking as someone who has her own trauma and recognizes how family ties can affect your decision-making process. You know, daddy issues are a thing, and there's a reason for them to be a thing, for example. So I am not casting any aspersions on Jodi at all. I'm casting a shit ton of aspersions, excuse me, on her. I've got like cotton mouth today, on her with respect to what she did to Cole. But the rest of it, I just feel horrible for her, having grown up in this environment and like walking around this hotel room that she has been living in with cameras all over the place, walking through that, going through your belongings, which I'd love to talk to you about, and then leaving like through the room in which she has been monitored 24/7. It was so surreal. And she's sad to leave this, that's an incredible place for your brain to be. Like, sad to leave this aquarium that you've been living in.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it goes to like what we're talking about in all of its ways, that she just doesn't have the same view of what life is like that somebody else at her age in America would likely have.
Right.
That this is not a liberating experience for her.
Right.
She's sad and terrified, and she's losing everything that is hers.
Yeah. So what did you pick up? And I definitely want to talk. Well, let me just ask real quick. I'm bouncing all over the place. Did you take a shower before the date?
Yes.
I knew it. I knew it. Guess whether I allowed the viewer to see her in a shower. Just kidding. I noped out of there. You don't get to see Madison naked. You're not getting to see Jodi naked. Next scene. Okay, anyway, thank you. What did you pick up? What did you take with you?
From her childhood room there, everything that I could find.
Oh,
and I
yay.
would have taken more. Okay, so just very quickly, just to also set the stage for where I was there, when the scene opens with Jodi and Dr. Defoe examining some objects. And so I did that and found some information out about Dr. Defoe's daughter or wife. Now it's been a few days. So I'm trying to remember what that scene was. Daughter. And then Ryan shows up, and I eavesdropped on their conversation. And then when the doctor was like, Jodi, can I see you for a minute? I immediately started walking around the room and trying to find other things to do.
Yes.
Then I went out, and Mia, it is shocking that like it gives you a couple opportunities to object to this. And like on the second one, I honestly don't know, because I watched it back and I might have actually timed out, but I'm just letting the viewers know I hit the button for obey. And I was horrified that
you poor thing.
Oh my God. It's one of those moments in a narrative game that all you want to do is reload it and take it back. Like, not that it would have made any difference, but the idea that the scene of Jodi just like slumping her shoulders and being like, oh, okay, I'll go get my stuff. And that's when Ryan was like, not only the essentials. So when I went in there and eventually worked out, that's the first when I trashed the place first, just mad. Then I was like, only the essentials. I'm gonna pack this chair. Like, I would have taken everything that was in that room.
The main thing that I cared about, I was taking the pink bunny. And if I had the opportunity to choose between keeping or leaving the picture of her parents, I would have chosen to leave. But luckily, the game, you know, the choice was made for me with her ripping it up. But I swear to God.
Whoa.
What? Talk!
She ripped it up?
Yes!
I don't think that happened for me.
No way.
I specifically said aloud, I want half of this picture. And at least my memory, oh
Oh.
boy, viewers are going to roast me if I'm wrong about this. I think that she put the whole picture into her thing. She didn't rip it up.
Now, see, now you've got me worried that she ripped it in half and took half. Now I'm just rewriting the whole scene. Oh, God, oh, God.
Please let
Well,
us know in the comments
yes,
section
please.
what actually happened in our own playthrough.
I love you. Well, wait. Did you? Also, by the way, just really quickly, I would have loved to have just packed the pink bunny and the flashlight. I didn't have the option to get the flashlight. But I was ready to go. But-
It's Jodie's go bag
Yes,
in
it
case of
is.
emergency.
Oh my God, it's the best. Did you wind up choking the father out after he did his bullshit goodbye scene with her?
No. I really dislike. Again, I'm sort of in that scene in the mind of I am an adult in a scene where Jodie is a very young child,
Yeah.
and although Jodie might have been motivated to lash out at her father, and maybe Iden more so,
Right.
even though we've already seen how a lot of the rest of her life goes, I'm thinking to myself, if Jodie in this relatively early stage demonstrates to the doctors that she's dangerous,
Yeah.
that is not going to work to her benefit. That's going to curtail her freedom. It's going to make her less more suspect, more restricted. I didn't want that for her. I really strongly dislike her father. Her father's garbage.
Yes.
Like he feels nothing about
Yes.
staying right in front of her. That's enough. Like enough of this. What does he say to like Jodie's mom?
Yes.
But-
Yes. Oh. And you have better self-control than I do, honestly, because I do try to make my decisions as Jodie, but with respect to the father, apparently I'm incapable because I choked the shit out of him for as long as I could, and I only stopped, I think, accidentally because I took my finger off the button, but I regretted it because as a result of that moment, the mother looks at her with fear in her eyes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I fucked that up for Jodie.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about mom. I was entirely thinking about Jodie. I was thinking about like choking the father out is how you get sedated, 18 hours out of the day or something. I was worried
Yeah.
about.
Appropriately.
Yeah. And so two things. I need to correct what I said. I did not take everything. There was one thing when packing that I deliberately left behind, which was the first picture that very young Jodie had drawn for Dr. Defoe of her and Iden.
Tell me what, because I didn't know what to do there. I wound up keeping it. Tell me, what was your thought process?
It was I wanted him to have something to remember her by, something that was part of me was like, by leaving this behind, it might communicate to him that that Jodie doesn't care about him at all. Like
Yeah.
this first interaction that they had, when in fact it was the opposite. I wanted him to have something that helped him to remember Jodie as a human being with both power and emotions, like being scared of this and not
Yeah.
knowing how to process it, that there was this human connection that the two of them had with each other. And Jodie I know is going to remember that. I wanted him to have something to remember that as well.
Yeah. Which is, it's actually really sweet. I don't know what made me make the final decision to take it, because I was wondering, is this a positive memory for her? But my stubborn brain got in there and was like, he said only the essentials. So I was like, fuck it, I'm packing it. So-
Yeah, and it's a topic that we touch on again and again, but again, the decision to present this game non-linearly means that what you pack in that scene cannot be reflected when Jodie's actually shown
shit.
in her dormitory at the CIA.
yeah.
It continues to be a point of fascination for me that they they're telling this story out of order, and I still don't know why. I don't know how the story benefits from it, and it seems to detract from the game design. As a designer, I think that whatever the
Right.
player packs, you would want to see reflected in Jodie's room. It's
Right.
literally just adding an asset, and they can't do that because those scenes are played by the person. And even if they remix the game as they have done, like new remixed order, you still can't because that's not how it was originally designed. Sorry, I'm just like,
No, don't be sorry.
it's you watch Memento, which is shown out of sequence, and you understand why
Yep.
very acutely. You play this, and it seems like it was a stylistic choice made without regard for all of the other things it would entail.
Yep.
It's interesting. Um, so we got packed, and then, yeah, like you said, we go to the dinner. I
Oh, good.
What did you cook? I'm very curious.
I
What was
was
your
gonna
whole
ask
thought
you.
process here? Because I have not had the experience of having a guy come over and like, what am I going to prioritize? I'm all ears.
Okay, cleaning. Cleaning was the priority because, first of all, I don't understand why she chucks her Cheeto bag on the floor to begin with. This is a gorgeous apartment. Like, fucking clean this shit up. And then at one point, she takes books, she puts them on the shelf, and then she sees she's got video game stuff, a controller and a game on the floor, and she just kicks it underneath her dresser. And I was like, what? Are you 12? Like, what is this? So I was very obsessed with the cleaning. I am really sorry about my cotton mouth here. I don't know what's going on. Trying my best to manage it. I was also really, like, first of all, an hour? You're coming over in an hour? No, you're not. An hour is not enough time for me to even mentally prepare that I'm about to hang out with another person. So an hour was just sent me into dead panic mode. But I'm looking at the clock in the kitchen, and I'm looking at the clock in the fucking bedroom. Did you happen to look at the clock in the bedroom?
That was the only clock that I saw. I didn't realize that there was a clock in the kitchen that you could hold A to look at until I was glancing back at the footage we had recorded. So
Okay.
I only saw the one in the bedroom, and it seemed like she had a good amount of time to get stuff done.
No, here's what's interesting. For me, when I got to the bedroom, it said, I think I had cleaned 1, 2 things, and I went into the bedroom and it said it was 1650, which is, fuck me, it was 1750. So that made, no, okay, Angel. 7 o'clock, 7:50 would have been 1950. There we go. In military time, after only having cleaned up 1 or 2 things, I walk into the bedroom and 50 minutes had passed and I freaked out. I had the option for a shower. I said, no, you guys don't get to see her in the shower. And I was like, dinner, fuck that noise, fuck this guy, why is this even happening? And finally, when I looked at the clock in the kitchen, it was 20 to 8. And so those 2 clocks were reading completely different, and it was really frustrating because I didn't know how much actual time I was going to have to do all of this. And so at what I thought was 7:50, I decide to cook Asian beef. Because first of all, I was like, pizza, fuck him, pizza. But he's probably going to be an asshole about it. So then it was between Asian beef. I didn't want to give him a reason to be an asshole to her. And so it was between Asian beef and the chicken dish. And I knew that oven roasted vegetables take like an hour in the oven. So I was like, no, fuck that. So I made the worst animated case of beef, whatever, that has ever existed. Sorry, I'm not speaking well. What did you make? Because that beef was stupid. It was like, it was clearly 2D blocks of color. Like it was so stupid. Sorry. Talk.
Oh, I straight up ordered the pizza.
Oh,
I didn't give yeah. The way I'm thinking about it, I thought the exact same thing. Like, he might be an asshole about it. And what I'm thinking is that if this dude who calls up, just like basically cold calls her, oh, hey, did you get all of my emails?
Right.
She hasn't responded. So it turns out the answer is no, but that's kind of presumptuous to call your subordinate at work at home and ask if she's gotten the personal emails that you sent asking her out. It's now the night of the date that he was trying to set up.
Right.
He hasn't heard back, so he's going to call her. She is so clearly unprepared and says, no, I didn't get them, but if you want to come over. If under those circumstances, he was going to be an asshole about the fact that she ordered them pizza, that is like doomed even more than anything that we've already talked about. So it's like, nope, we're going to clean up the apartment ready because I don't want Jody to feel embarrassed or whatever. Right. I don't care, but it seems like she does. Although I did very much enjoy when you mentioned the Cheeto bag. I loved it when I pressed the button to clean up and she like ate some snacks.
I know. I absolutely adored her for that moment. Yes.
But then, yeah, I ordered the pizza. It took me a while to find the phone. And then took the shower, and then it was like, okay, so how do you want to get dressed? And of all the options, I think it was either like cool or casual or something like that.
Yes.
I'm like, again, he called out of the blue, right? She's not getting dressed to the nines for this,
right? And also, Angel, it wasn't just that he called out of the blue. He called 1 hour before he had wanted to meet with her. So he called her late enough to make her feel bad about having missed the emails, and late enough that there really wasn't anything she could do about it. Mm-hmm. Like, oh shit, this was supposed to happen in an hour? That motherfucker should have called her yesterday or earlier today. Like, don't call her, because all that one phone call could possibly do is just make her feel guilty. Like, I know we can't do this thing, but I just wanted to let you know that I asked you out. Yeah. Even though it's too late now. Am I making any sense?
No, yeah, and that's exactly where I was coming at it from. Like, I wanted Jody to feel good about her place and herself, but that was about Jody, not about impressing Ryan.
Right.
And therefore, like, when we're going to get dressed, no, you just get dressed in something that would be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna like stress about this. And did you get locked out of the apartment at one point?
Yes, I did. Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I heard the knock. I was in the middle of something. I think I was getting dressed, actually. So I heard the knock and was like, man, this guy really wanted to be here. And like stopped and finished getting dressed and so forth. And then I walked over, got locked out, got back in. And that brings us to like the ghost in the room, who is Aiden, who is channeling a lot of me in this scene. Apparently has smashed Jody's computer so that she doesn't get to... I think at first I thought maybe she was playing VR Samurai Simulator, but no, it was Aiden who had smashed the screen on the laptop so she couldn't get the emails. And then you have all of these options to disrupt the date. And did you? I'm curious, like, how did you play as Aiden?
I never disrupted the date. I never did, because the relationships where one person is trying to communicate a message to the other and it's clear that neither one is listening. Like, come on, Aiden, cut it out. I mean it. Stop it, Aiden. Okay, that's real mature. I was thinking, this is obnoxious to me. I don't like witnessing this. I don't like being a part of it. What I want them to do is have an honest conversation that's heartfelt and not just an empty conversation where no one is going to listen to the other. And I did not want to play in to her, like, to that dynamic where he's just not listening to her. And nothing is going to change. Like, do you actually want this dynamic to change or don't you? Because just going, come on, knock it off is not going to change anything. So it was the moment where when right before she answered the door, she said, seriously, she said, Aiden, like something to the effect of, please, this is really important to me. And I went, great, that's all I needed, done. And I just tootled around the apartment and never took the opportunity to fuck anything up for her.
Yeah, so I did cause some ruckus, and at first I was trying to be subtle about it, like do things in other rooms, because I
Right? Oh my
forgot the
God.
fact that Ryan knows all about Iden, and it's sort of the whole basis of why she's in the CIA. So I just hadn't remembered that, and then I started like messing things up in the room, and as that went on, and Jody was like, just just ignore Iden. He's just having a problem. And eventually Ryan was like, all right, it seems pretty clear that there's something wrong with Iden. So Jody got up, goes into the next room, and then addresses Iden and underscores what you just said. Stop it. This is like seriously, this is important. Cut it out.
Yeah.
She probably said the same thing at the door, and I didn't feel good about raising this tantrum because Jody is an adult, and for everything that you've heard me say about the different way that she's been brought up, she does have the right to make her own decisions.
Right.
And as when I'm playing as Jody, I want to make the best decisions for Jody that I can. When I'm Iden, I understand that Iden's motivation here is to ruin the date. That's pretty clear, but it doesn't feel good as a player to be disrupting something that's important to her. So after that, I cut it out.
Yeah.
And I was glad to have an in-universe reason to call it quits.
Oh, that's awesome. So, did they wind up getting into bed?
They did, and it didn't last long, which then brought to the
Oh God.
at the end of the chapter.
Yes.
It was like one of the things was, did you sleep with Ryan?
Yes.
And it was like, you did not sleep with Ryan. I was like, okay, was there an alternative on the table? Because I was not into it. Jody super was. And then all of a sudden she throws him off and says, I can't do this. And before we go on, what is happening there? I have my own theory, but I just wanted to hear from you.
I have no fucking idea. I have no fucking idea, because the only thing we saw was the assault that didn't actually happen. And that is the assault in the bar, the like other girls. That I feel that's the only thing I could draw upon that was something that might have traumatized her. And I would want to speak very, very lightly here, because I don't. Each person is going to experience and process trauma differently. I was surprised. I was not expecting her to throw him off, and not especially, but if the assault that didn't happen in the bar was the reason, it was confusing for me. That's my thoughts.
And that was my theory as well. The assault in the bar is the only thing that we've seen that seems narratively linked to Jody suddenly becoming very, very uncomfortable with this interaction, that she's sort of flashing back to that. And again, that's from before she joined the CIA.
Yeah.
I would have assumed that prior to doing any field work, maybe I just have a very Hollywood view of what intelligence work is like, but I would have expected her to be psychologically assessed by a professional who would have known about this from from like reports that would have been written up by Dr. Defoe and Cole, that this would have come up in therapy, that it would have been. I was surprised that this would have been the thing that was still so present in her mind, which then just leaves open the possibility that there's some other trauma that we don't know about that takes place between those two things.
Right.
Like you said, different people process things differently. It's just I I would have expected for Jody to have had opportunities to talk and to begin to work through and process what had happened to her in the bar, and that it wouldn't necessarily have welled up. But maybe she thought she had. I'm
Sure.
like, neither one of us is saying this with judgment. We're trying to
At
piece
all.
together, yeah, why she suddenly like pitches him off, and he sort of like reluctantly goes, like, "Oh, I guess I should go."
Oh, excuse me. So, excuse me. Reluctantly, that piece of shit could not have gotten out of that room fucking faster. I hate him. I hate him. Like, oh, I guess I gotta go. See you later. Like, no. Oh, God, that response lit my head on fire. This is not me actually yelling at you, Angel, of course. That was a moment, you know, you and I, me and Angel, have had conversations about what kind of emotional responses do each of us prefer in different kinds of situations, and what would your natural response be, and how would you react to this, and here's what I think. So we've had these kinds of conversations, and like I feel like I know. No, I'm really curious what you would have wanted Ryan to do. Because what I would have wanted him to do was sit with her, and if you bounce right away like that, there is a very good possibility that she is going to feel unwanted, or she is going to feel broken. She is going to feel like the only thing he might have been interested in was sex. When she couldn't deliver, he bounced. Like, there's so much damage to be caused by leaving immediately, even if your intentions are, I want to give her some space. Because she didn't say, can you please leave? She never said that. So he could have put his hand on her back and just sat with her for a minute. And then they could have gone back into the living room and watched a fucking movie and chilled out. Like, this is what I would have wanted. Go.
And that's what I think I called it out in the moment. I was surprised that he was just like, well, I guess I should go, and then just leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt very surprised that I don't even think he asks her what's going on, are you okay, anything.
Mm-hmm.
He just goes, which, as you said, sends a pretty clear communication that he was only actually there for one reason, and that once it became clear that sex was off the table, okay, well, I guess my night is blown. I'll see you
Mm-hmm.
later. And just expressed no concern for her and whatever she was going through, which again, I assume he knows all about.
Right. Right. And also, motherfucker showed up 20 minutes late. After I was stressing about the clock and it was 10 of and all of this, blah, 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 he fucking shows up at 20 after and doesn't say, I'm sorry I'm late. I hate Ryan.
I had no idea what time he showed up.
8:20. People may not know how compulsive I can be, but time matters, even though I suck at it. But anyway, so how gratuitous was the shower scene? I'm gonna see it when I watch her playthrough.
Not at all that I remember. No more so. I don't think there was anything more than what was in the shower scene in Navajo. With the only
Okay, good.
difference being in Navajo, Jody has very, very short hair, and here she had her hair like back in a ponytail and is making no effort to keep it dry. And I'm like, okay, so is there going to be some sort of blow dry? Is she just going to like have wet hair? Not that it matters to me or
Right.
her apparently, because it's just not even an issue. But yeah, that was the one and only difference that I perceived.
Okay. All right, good. So let's talk about Navajo.
Yeah, so Navajo's one of the longest chapters in not no, I it goes on for quite a bit, and I mean, like, for me it sort of begins with like the very concept of it, which again, viewed just taken in a complete vacuum, it feels like it's repurposing elements of Native American and First Nations uh, religion, mysticism, mythology,
Yeah.
or whatever would be the correct term, towards like releasing something dark and sinister that only this, white protagonist can come in and
Oh.
resolve for them. So it feels at first like there's an element of that, but I guess in fairness to Quantic Dream, it's like I've seen that same thing toyed with before, including with like Weird West, for example. You and I watched a Puffin Forest video where he was
Oh,
talking about a
yes.
Weird West themed RPG that he had played, where that's the whole premise of the system. That as white settlers were encroaching further and further across North America and driving the native peoples out of their ancestral lands in this RPG system, uh, Native American religious worshippers, please forgive me if I at any point used the wrong terminology here, but invoked dark powers that caused like eldritch elements to come out into the world.
Right.
So the RPG system is set in the Old West, but with a lot of demons and smoke monsters and chimera and dark rituals and stuff. And that's sort of like the premise of the system. And I'm just acknowledging that Quantic Dream would not be the first and will probably not be the last to toy with this idea.
Right.
For me, I would have been like, I feel like the story would have been unaffected at all if they had said, a bunch of, Christian separatist lunatics decided to do their own weird ritual and unleash this dark demon. Like it felt, I don't know. I have a few thoughts about the whole premise of it. But I wanted to hear from you.
Well, one of the things that happened is it made me nostalgic for my time spent in both New Mexico and Utah, because Monument Valley is in Utah, right? I meant to look that up. Well,
That sounds right, but I've not been to the area. I'm
Okay.
bad with geography.
yeah, I have been, and I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, so a lot of my time was walking through this environment. I was reminiscing and telling stories about times when I was in New Mexico and in Utah. I was frustrated with. I was frustrated with how quote I'm in quote mode here, like Native American they were presented. Like you can't be Native American without having the blankets and the turquoise and all of this. Like it was a stereotypical representation. But I wound up getting past that. And I think I think that was maybe the only aspect of that part of the story that I honed in on with a bit of a raised eyebrow was their stereotypical mode of dress. And I was deeply, deeply, deeply hoping that they were actually speaking Navajo and not just having some actors make noise. You know what I'm saying? Because that would have been just incredibly disrespectful. But
My
go.
guess would be that they had some native Navajo speakers to communicate there. But like my question for that was, the characters sounded so different when speaking in what would have been their native tongue, that I wasn't sure if they had brought in like different voice actors to record those lines.
Right.
And I did not, to avoid story spoilers, I don't want to look that up, but I was curious if the actual voice actors for Paul, Cody, and Jay had delivered those lines in Navajo or not.
Yeah. I would like for us to remember to look that up afterward. And just real quick, speaking of looking up, I just typed it in on my phone. Monument Valley is in Arizona, which actually makes, I know, which makes a lot of sense with respect to the environment. That red rock is more Arizona than New Mexico. And the saguaro cacti. So that makes sense. Um, I, I, I didn't like that. For two things I really didn't like. I don't like the plot device where someone is told, just stay in your room, don't ask any questions, just do it, trust me, blah blah blah. And I always feel like, and I think you and I have talked about this, give her a minute and a half worth of explanation, and people are much more likely to understand what is at stake if you tell them why they are being asked to do something. Or maybe that's just me. But if someone says, there's no time, just get in your room, don't come out, the first thing I'm going to do is try to get out of that room, because fuck you. Like, so that plot, I mean, you see that all of the time. I can't explain now, no time to explain. That sort of bullshit line. And then another point where I was like, really? Was her sort of seeming like she was afraid of an entity or unfamiliar with it. And she lives with one. She knows about the monsters. So her sort of wide-eyed attitude toward, I don't remember the name of the entity now, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Am I making any sense?
Oh yeah. And for me with the explanation, I don't know, like I can't think of an explanation that they could have given to a stranger that would have encompassed, it's very important that you stay inside, stay in your room, and don't come out until morning, no matter what you hear, is one of the things that they say.
Right.
That would have sufficed. Because from their perspective, they have no idea who Jody is and what she can do. This is just some random drifter that walked by. So to share with her what's happening would sound... It's if I was in Paul's shoes, I'd be like, okay, if I try to tell this person what's actually going on, they're not going to believe me. They're going to want to go outside to see for themselves. And then that life is going to be on my conscience. So instead, I'll just try to compel obedience through urgency. Just go in there. And like, I guess for me, I wasn't reading it as a lack of time, but a lack of, what do you say? Like, what do you do you have any thoughts on like what kind of explanation would have worked for you?
Yeah, that felt... Wait, I'm confusing an episode of Human Resources that I watched last night. Sorry. But the weather event, just say there are huge sandstorms. They're very dangerous. Wood comes loose, sheep gets thrown around. I'm asking you to please stay inside for your own safety. It is very dangerous out there. Boom.
That's good.
Done.
That is very good. It really is.
Yeah.
Which goes to like where I didn't... Like, for me, Jody, to my knowledge, hasn't seen an entity that's that powerful.
Right.
That, like, she's... To the extent that she can perceive them at all, which is something we talked about last time, like, she can feel them for sure, but I don't know to what extent she can see them. She certainly hasn't witnessed something on this scale. Like, this giant, horizon-swallowing monster that is just sort of like... This is something that has, I assume, been on the human plane of reality long enough that it's greatly expanded over what originally came through the rift. And Jody she hasn't seen anything that approaches this. And that's what it leads me to the Gozer problem. If it's that powerful, why is it hanging around here? Is it tethered to its point of origin, similar to how Aiden is tethered to wherever Jody goes?
Right.
Like, it doesn't have free reign, it's just stuck there?
Right, because that's one of the things that I said while playing is, if this dude is hungry for souls, he should probably go to a city. Like, there are 5 people here. It didn't make sense that he would stick around this incredibly barren area. Yeah. But probably
where I was
tethered,
thinking,
yeah.
Like, I got stuck on, and I didn't like talk about this one way or the other, but the thought passes, wait, if this area is haunted and it is chained here, couldn't this family just go? And then it occurred to me that well, the offshoot of that is like this is a people that has been chased out of every place that's ever called
Right.
them theirs.
Right.
So no, they're gonna say no. I'm not leaving here. This is our land. We're not gonna get chased off by some smoke monster.
Right. And also, if it is tied to us, what if it's tied to us and not the land? And then if we go somewhere else, we're going to bring that wrath down on innocent people.
That's a really good point that I hadn't, like, it could have been tied to grandmother, it could have been tied to one of them, it could switch, depending on which member of the family. Like the spirits operate according to criteria and purposes that we don't know and aren't meant to know. So
Right.
yeah, I was sort of thinking that it was tied to location, but you're absolutely right. It could be one of the family members.
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Also, and I did talk about this in my recording, I think people are probably going to be very frustrated that I absolutely stayed in my room. Paul's like, go to your room, don't come out.
I love you.
Roger went there, went to sleep. Like, and I spent so much time talking about this. This is their house.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. They took us in. They took us, myself and Iden, right? They took us in. They fed us. The place setting happened to already be set, but we'll move on from that. But yeah. Why would you actively disrupt, disobey? Yeah. Sorry, go.
yeah, no, all of that. Jody's a hitchhiker. She wandered in desperate for shade and water and offered to stay out in the barn. And for reasons that we quickly come to discover, the barn is not going to be a good idea. So they invite her into the house. They feed her. They give her what appears to be just a fully made guest room.
Yep.
just the extra room that they have there. And the one thing that they ask in exchange is follow this rule, lights out, you go, we're going to board up the windows, you go into your room and you don't come out no matter what you hear. And of course, Iden went for a few different strolls because they didn't say anything about your ghost pal. That wasn't on the lease. Otherwise, Jody stayed where she was. And even on the second night, after she decides to stay, like, my intent was to go back to the room and stay there because she's a guest in their home.
Yeah.
And they don't know who she is and what she can do. But until whatever it is that they're dealing with, they don't want her involvement right now. And until somebody's life is in danger or she needs, like, they're handling it is my point. So just back off. And that was my thought on it.
And I think that is an appropriate real world thought. So note to self, if Angel comes to visit Shiv and I, we can say he will listen if we say, now stay in your room no matter what you hear. But no. So how did you get outside the second night then?
Jody wouldn't go back to her room.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, walked up to the doorknob, put her hand on it, and then, like, I don't know if she heard something or just said, nah, and then turned and had to go outside. I also thought it was very funny before we, on the first day, like, after she'd stayed there, like, she's going to do some chores to pay for her room and board.
Yes.
Or no, actually, that was when Paul had sort of asked her, like, do you want to stay on for a while? When she goes outside, there's a sheep that's basically missing like an entire left flank.
Right.
And she asks, like, what happened there? Oh, sandstorm. Yeah, the sandstorm gouged a huge piece of sheep out.
You don't know, man. You've never been to Arizona.
I was trying to think, like, would Jody, like, maybe wind blew some sheet metal into the sheep and that gouged somehow, but like just that as an explanation was not great.
Sure. Boy oh boy, the horse mechanic. Goodness gracious. Did Red Dead spoil the shit out of us?
Yeah, the horse just sort of
yeah.
did whatever it wanted. I had a lot
Yeah.
of difficulty getting it aimed in the direction that I
Okay,
wanted.
thank you.
Like, at one point, I acknowledged to the microphone that I am holding down right trigger to go fast, and the horse just isn't interested.
Okay, thank you so much. And also, I know it's a video game, but I've been around feisty horses. You don't you don't go immediate like letting a human get near it is very different from, okay, now we're gonna saddle you and ride around. As an inexperienced rider, I'm just gonna hop on your back and everything's gonna be gravy. Like that pushed that made my suspension of disbelief awfully taut. But yeah, so here's I think one of the big questions I have about Navajo is at the end, she's doing the ritual. She needs a fifth soul. At that point, Paul is injured, but it is not my understanding that he has died. So I was yelling, go get Paul, go get Paul, go get Paul. Like you can carry him out here. You need the soul for this ritual. And that never crossed Jodi's mind. And instead, she said, of course, Iden. And I was like, I'm sorry, when did we decide he either has or is a soul? Like, what? How was that the obvious choice that she had somehow missed? Thoughts?
I have a quick follow-up question first. Did you save Paul? And if so, how?
Right, because at the end, when you get the thing, you didn't save Paul. And that was the same thing with the you didn't sleep with piece of shit. It was, what? Did I have that option? When? How? In what way? So,
And the reason I was asking, I was very curious if you had done it. My only guess is... at first it was like, is there a way to get back to the farm faster, the ranch faster, so that like you're there in time to stop the attack? But then it occurred to me afterwards, maybe when you first go inside and I immediately started interacting with grandmother, maybe you have the option to go into Paul's room and use Iden's healing ability.
Shit.
And it never occurred to me. I was all in like emergency response mode. The monster is coming right now. We have to deal with that. It never occurred to me that I would have an opportunity to help Paul.
That makes sense. Yeah. It didn't occur to me either. Yeah, go.
I was thinking the same thing, that they were going to go get Paul and bring Paul out to have the fifth soul. When she went with Iden, I guess that... I don't know if Iden is supposed to be a human spirit or something else, but he exists on the astral plane. So I feel like it's, it may not be beef, but it's soy, and you can make it taste like beef if you want to. So it's close enough.
Best description of the just yay you.
Metaphysics is whatever you want it to be.
Right.
So here we go. It's invisible
Done.
and has force powers. It's a soul.
Boo. I mean, I wish they obviously wanted to bring Iden in on this. That was part of it, but I wish they had done it less clunkily. Anyway,
I'd be so interested to know the percentage of people that, at least on their first playthrough, like knew or thought to go into Paul. Because I saw him with like, he got sheeped, right? His side got ripped open, and Jodi has up to this point demonstrated the ability to help eliminate like heroin pains and stuff like that, but not to like Rey Skywalker somebody back into one piece. So I was like, this isn't gonna work. Like it never even occurred to me to go into that room. I was 100% on stop the smoke monster, and I felt I thought I saw the fifth talisman around grandmother's neck. It turned out that she just had it in her hand, but she was wearing something that looked very similar to me.
Yeah. And it was nice. I mean, obviously we knew Jodi was going to elicit speech from the grandmother at some point. I wish they'd waited just a little bit longer before she started talking, because it felt like when she started talking, it didn't, nothing was happening in that particular moment that seemed like it would be enough to wake her out of her silence. I don't know.
And I was thinking that Jody was going to use Aiden to bridge the gap. That I was thinking
Right.
grandmother has lost the ability to speak, like that this is a physiological condition, but Aiden can show Jody things that happen around objects. He can interfuse with dead bodies to show Jody how they died.
Yeah.
It seemed to me a relatively trivial matter. If you can like reanimate dead flesh to show what happened, to them in life, it seems to me like talking to this individual who's there.
Right.
And like it was very surprising to me that they didn't do that.
Right.
Unless I'm misremembering. She just decides to pipe in
Right.
all of a sudden.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yes, exactly. No, you're not misremembering that. Because what I was expecting is something that was similar to what happened in Homeless, where she was going to individually help people. And I was very surprised that that wasn't any part of this particular story. I mean, and I guess like I might have seen it as too formulaic at that point if it had happened, but I was very surprised at the lack of Aiden interaction.
It seems like the thing he's best at. Like he can sort of like blow tumbleweeds out of a windmill, but his whole deal multiple times, it's, as with so many things we talk about in this game, just a weird decision not to use Aiden as, because in that absence, why was she sitting quietly for all those years? She just didn't have any desire for human interaction with her own family. What suddenly jogged her out of it?
Right.
If she was incapable of processing the world around her in a way that led to verbal communication, then Aiden could have been the conduit that allowed Jody to understand her. She could have helped walk Jody through the steps to do the ritual, since after all, it's her culture, not Jody's.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few thoughts on that. Just that whole decision, because Jody sort of like comes to grandmother with more knowledge than she has herself about like, oh, I saw it in this ritual from like what your ancestors went through, and grandmother's like, oh, awesome, because I didn't know any of that. By the way, here's the last item that you need to make this ritual work.
Yeah. And I had there was enough hello. There was enough stuff that made me raise an eyebrow throughout that entire chapter. Like, why would she take the pendants but leave the skull and the mask? Oh my God, if you took logs in a windstorm, poured gasoline on them, and lit them up, goodbye ranch, like there were enough little things that made me go, really? Really? The horse. I could spend a lot of time nitpicking.
It was amazing to me when Jody she grabbed this gasoline can, poured some gasoline onto the logs, then just chucked the half-full container behind her onto its side and pays it no mind as she starts like furiously lighting matches. Of like, that doesn't seem like it's gonna go well, Jody.
Right, exactly. Okay, so did you get the bonus I want to talk about Jay, and I want to ask if you got if you unlocked the bonus. Angel, if you unlocked the bonus when they were burying grandmother and Paul.
I don't think I did.
Okay, so
I don't think I did. No.
It was, they were standing above the open graves, and I was using Aiden to look around the landscape, and I saw a little blue wisp off in the distance, and I walked over to it, and it was unlocking a bonus, which I still have no idea what it is.
Yeah, no, I don't think I did that. My thought process there was Jody is being led to an area that is of great significance to this family and these people, and both she as a character and I as a player don't know anything about this, and I don't know how to avoid being horrifically offensive in some way, like
Right.
walking where I'm not supposed to walk or
Right.
not talking when I'm supposed to. Like, I don't know. And so I was sort of thinking about like just not being a huge ass in the face of somebody else's culture that I'm just happen to be unfamiliar with.
Right. That once again, that foresight was not present in my brain.
I had a
Yeah.
quick question about, so Jay and Cody, their names tended to get confused because I feel like if your name is Jay, you're contractually obligated to be the younger brother, but Jay was the older brother, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then it's Cody who's telling the story at dinner, which is just a laugh riot. And I actually made a note of this.
Oh, good.
The punchline is the guy left running, and you know what? He was never seen again. And everybody is uproariously laughing at this, like, what? Are you describing the beginning of every Friday the 13th movie? Or what's the joke here?
I love you. I have no idea.
I so wanted to hear the beginning of that story because
Right.
it really was like they asked the actor to just say something, so he just like made up some shit and then everybody laughed at it. It was very odd.
That's
And then
hilarious.
yeah, that brings us to Jay. Did you kiss Jay?
That was what I wanted to ask you. No, I didn't kiss him because, like, the moment Jay popped up on screen, I was being a lascivious pig the entire time. I tried to snoop in his bedroom, like I was just being absolutely disgusting, objectifying the fuck out of him until he did the thing where they were all eating lunch outside by the tree on the day that she did the work. And she's asking him, she's pressing him about his secret. And he stands up, gets real close to her, and looks down at her and says, "Oh, what if I start asking you about your secrets? You don't like that, huh? Just shut up," or whatever. And I was like, no, because that's an ugly alpha intimidation move, and it doesn't matter how fit he is. I did not like that at all. Did you have that scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. With the same reaction.
You did?
And although it makes sense as you learn more, I also didn't like very much when Jody came to the door for the very first time. It was like, "Please, I need some water," and Jay's the one who's like, "No, get out
No.
of here. We can't help you."
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
not even some water. Like, I feel like as we learn more about this situation, I can understand him wanting to be very inhospitable, but this could be a life or death situation,
Right.
and probably would have been. So, like, I didn't like him from that. Then there's the scene that you're describing. I was honestly surprised when Kiss came up as an option because
Right.
I just didn't perceive any chemistry between the two of them at all.
Right. And they had the moment where they sat underneath a tree. They went on their horse ride. But they were both sitting under a tree, and the scene wasn't leading anywhere there either. So I, at the time, you got that scene where they were sitting
Yes.
under? Yeah, okay. And then at the time where it was hug or kiss, I was thinking, okay, well, Mia is the only one who has been thinking sexy thoughts this whole time. So I just hugged him. So what about you?
Ditto. Yeah,
Yeah.
it came up and it was like, I feel like I barely know this guy.
Right.
B, he just lost his grandmother and his father.
Right.
So this is probably not. I know that like Jody was going to be on her way, so like there wasn't a long-term relationship in the cards, but it didn't feel appropriate based on what he's going through, and
Sure.
also I didn't think that I don't think that he disliked her. I think that he was very prickly. He was
Right.
very like difficult to get to know for reasons that make sense in context, but still, like, no, we can go. I was also going to ask if you would fix the bike because when I saw
Oh
that as being one of
my
the
God!
categories at the end, I was like, bike.
Right! Right! And I usually keep my eyes out for motorcycles in environments. And I was stunned when I saw that option at the end. So, no, I didn't fix the bike. And, like, I'm really, really glad that they got that bike running because that style of bike is just mwah. But I was also going, this rust bucket is not going to get you very far. Like, I don't know how you got it running, but this is a jankety looking bike that needs a lot of love.
Yeah, don't turn it off.
Right, right. So yeah.
Yeah, that was an example of me, like, again, doing what was asked of me by someone who is showing me a lot of kindness. Like, can you go help out around the ranch? My first priority is to show that I'm not dead weight. I don't want
Right.
Jody to get chased out of here. I don't like. I also like, to Quantic Dream's benefit, you can sometimes have a scene that is just entirely truncated, that you don't get to see what it was about because you don't play along, you don't do the quick time events. You can burn through a quick Quantic Dream game pretty quickly if you just fail everything all the time. So, like, I don't know where those points are, and I'm like, well, I want to find out what's going on here. To that extent, I'm gonna play by the rules and do what's being asked of me. So as a result, I don't go exploring. I don't find the bike. I don't get the bike up and running.
Right. No, absolutely. And that sort of thing was in my head as well, because yeah, you can check out my Heavy Rain VOD to see what it looks like to fail your way through a Quantic Dream game. But yeah, so those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess my only other thought on Navajo is sort of the amazing convenience of Jody stumbling her way accidentally into a situation that Jody and Jody alone is capable of solving. Like, I
Right.
feel like from a writing standpoint, it would have been more interesting to me to have Jody come across like a completely different supernatural thing that had nothing to do with spirits and ghosts that she's also like able to handle, or something that doesn't have anything supernatural to it at all, that maybe seems supernatural but she's able to uncover the truth of it exactly like a detective or a doctor or barrister, for all I care, could have done. It's There's always the like, golly gee, isn't that convenient that
Yes.
this protagonist with this exact skill set happens to be the one who stumbles upon this situation, and it just happens to be the one who can resolve it. It feels a little bit floppy, but I will say that before it was clear what was going on, I think I made a comment about, like, does this game just have every story in it? Just it felt so
Right.
out of left field at first
Right.
that there's this situation that they have to board up against, and then ultimately it just turns out to be an offshoot of, like, the rift that they opened looked like they pulled a condenser, like they accidentally
Right.
opened up something that caused a lot of havoc, and now generations later there's still this issue. But yeah, as you said, those are my thoughts. I guess we'll go ahead and play the next sequence, then come back together in a few days and get to talk about that as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. This has
All
been
right,
a
thanks
ton
for
of
talking to
fun.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon.
Yep, see you then. Bye.
Bye.